here. The question is, does he bring a Choice Scarf Pokemon to a Trick Room matchup?
Oh, it could be risky, but let's see what the leads are going to be. Oh, it's a little classic throwback with the Incineroar and the Amoonguss up against these Trick Room duos. It's going to be the Indeedee and the Hatterene here. So, Marco in a position where you can apply a lot of pressure with something like a Spore to shut down that Indeedee, but you cannot Spore into the Hatterene.
Indeed, and unfortunately the Indeedee's even got safety goggles here, so Spore isn't going to be able to go into that slot either. But what Amoonguss does offer, though, is those Pollen Puffs. So at the moment, if left Wei's not kind of offering a lot of offense, then Marco can kind of just sit there, dish out a little bit of damage, get some knockoffs around, knock off a Life Orb, knock off a safety goggles, and then you can Spore right after that, and then just heal Incineroar back up again because you're not weak to any of those Psychic-type attacks. So we might have to see, though, a Terror from this Amoonguss if it's going to try and keep itself safe from all the Psychic sort of damage that that Wei is definitely outputting right now.
I honestly love that safety goggles tech on there, though, because it completely neutralizes this Amoonguss. These safety goggles are gone, though, actually. As soon as I say that, Amoonguss can then follow up with the Spore. So you can see exactly why Wei had built it this way. Amoonguss is one of those Pokemon you often bring when you see a Trick Room matchup, and it can be so disruptive. But Marco making sure that you can play around that. The Expanding Force will come through. This is obviously only going to connect on the Amoonguss to get the one-hit KO, but it does still manage to have got that Spore off. That could be detrimental to enabling a Trick Room to be set up.
Yeah, 100% there. And it looks like maybe it was the Indeedee. Yeah, Indeedee most likely going for a Trick Room on that turn there. So a decent turn for Wei, honestly, getting rid of that Amoonguss, because that's probably going to be your biggest threat once Trick Room is up.
Yes.
But Trick Room isn't up, Luke. That's the thing. And now Golden Ghost just come in here. It's offering those Make It Rains, and with that Life Orb, it's going to do so much damage. So without a Protect on this Hatterene, it's probably going to be forced to go for that Terror into the Fire type. But with the Indeedee now asleep, you can't consistently keep this Hatterene safe from a Follow Me. So does Marco perhaps kind of predict the Terror at this point? Maybe instead go for that Shadow Ball, for instance, into that slot. And with a double up with a Flare Blitz, that will probably be enough to get this Hatterene as well here. So it looks like Wei is maybe locking in that Terror. So we'll have to see what Marco goes for here. But either way, Marco definitely is more in the driver's seat right now, having resisting all that Fire and Psychic type moves.
And I think we've seen as well in the past how much damage a Make It Rain from Golden Go can do even into a Fire type. So if the Fire Terrestrialization comes through, yes, it's not going to deal as much damage, isn't going to be able to get the knockout, but it's still going to put it in significant range to be followed up by something like the Incineroar to get that knockout, remove the Hatterene from play, remove the potential Trick Room. And you called it perfectly there, David. The Hatterene is getting beautiful and bejeweled on the field, bringing a little heat to this match here in Swiss round 6, as the Golden Go actually locks in with the Shadow Ball, just thinking maybe this will get some good damage on the board, particularly if it didn't terrestrialize. You get the special defense drop for good measure, but you also then are not lowering your own special attack to Make It Rain. So a fantastic play by Marco with the follow-up.
There it is.
That's a knockout.
That is a massive knockout from Marco. Huge play. Not only is the Terror wasted, but the main way to get up Trick Room for Wei is also completely gone and off the field right now. Indeed, yes, it has Trick Room, but it's still asleep, and then has to come in and actually click it, which will always go last, and therefore is in range of any attack from Marco's end right now. Good thing for Wei, though, Ursaluna has the Flame Orb activated, so
yes.
And it has a lot of bulk behind it at the same time, so it's probably going to be able to take a double up from either of these attacks. Just the question is, where does Wei target? Because they need to really start making the most of this Ursaluna right now.
And as well, if you're forced to bring in that Torkoal, the sun's going to be in the sky. The Incineroar's not going to, be upset about that at all. It's going to get a boost to its Flare Blitz, and that can deal a significant chunk of damage into something like the Ursaluna, even if normally it wouldn't be doing too much at all. Ursaluna, yes, has been burned. That's really good for its Guts ability. But now if you're Wei, you're like, how do I get this Trick Room set up? Such slow Pokemon like the Torkoal and the Ursaluna need that capability. And this Amoonguss that came onto the field for half a second has been so damaging in what it was able to accomplish in that short space of time.
100%. Like, you need to kind of work out where you exactly need to target right now. So you can kind of safely target round Protects, for instance. So Incineroar doesn't carry Protect here. It's quite a fairly safe headlong rush kind of into that slot there, get that KO, but then you get those defense drops too. So if you can afford to maybe get that KO with the Facade instead, then that'll kind of help the longevity of this Ursaluna a little bit more. Golden Go may end up going for that Protect, for instance, as well. So if you can start to try and catch some of those, then maybe Wei can like crawl something out of this. They've got 3 Pokemon left, so it's not the end of the world right now. But Marco still has so much offense from behind, so we'll have to see how he makes the most of it.
Yes, and at least the Psychic Terrain's on the field, so you don't have to worry too much about priorities coming through, like a Fake Out from Incineroar, for example. But Pelipper's going to come on and actually rain on Wei's parade here. Drizzle is activated, so we have got this boosted Water-type damage potentially coming through from Pelipper in the next couple of turns. And being a Flying type, if there has been a Ground-type attack, such as a Headlong Rush coming through from Ursaluna, that is going to do absolutely no damage. I like Marco really switching things up here. You've brought in your Pelipper, you're also terrestrial terrestrializing your Incineroar so that it's going to be able to not take super effective damage from a Headlong Rush in return while getting a knockout for good measure into Indeedee.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a really safe play from Marco there to just cover all bases here. Like, unless Wei felt like going for like a facade into the switching into the Golden Go, which would have been an amazing read, but it wasn't going to work out too well. So yeah, this way, Incineroar always survives the turn at this point too. So like a really good defensive switch. Incineroar sticks around for another turn. You can switch more things around. You can maybe go for a parting shot into this Ursaluna. And to top it all off, this Pelipper can now also switch out thanks to the 3 Pokemon remaining now on Marco's instead of the last 2 he would have had otherwise.
And this is what we were talking about, right? The kind of ball position alignment of these weather setters. Now Torkoal is one of the last 2 remaining Pokemon where he cannot switch it out. Pelipper has that flexibility. And quite honestly, I don't see a reason for Marco not to do that. It just enables you to make sure that Torkoal's offensive pressure will be dampened, quite literally, when it's able to rejoin the field. Incineroar in a position again, it didn't get KO'd by the Headlong Rush, but it still did a huge chunk of damage. Ursaluna is definitely a threat you have to deal with. Pelipper could even stay on the field right now, maybe try and go for some damage, but I honestly, I'd switch it out if it was me.
Yeah, I think I would too, Lou. Yeah, I like it too. Let's see if Marco... Yeah, yes, we're as good as Marco. Excellent.
It's gone, yeah.
Amazing, yeah. And then in comes the Golden Go, maybe as a little bit of a sacrifice at the moment, depending if the Headlong Rush has gone into that slot. But here's a Flare Blitz first into that Ursaluna. That's a lot of damage, Lou.
I love this as well, getting your Pelipper out of there, but capitalizing on the sun in the sky right now. Yes, you are going to fall victim to your own recoil, but I think Marco was super happy with that because guess what? Pelipper's going to come back and run the show, bringing that rain onto the field as Ursaluna goes for a facade into a Ghost-type Pokemon, so it will be doing no damage.
But there's the Eruption, though, to follow up, and that absolutely covers the Golden Ghost switching in as well. So it's actually only the Pelipper left at this point. So, and it can only target 1 slot at a time, but this Ursaluna's looking very low on health, and this Torkoal is about to have its day rather dampened as this Pelipper comes straight in, offering those super effective Weather Balls into either of these slots.
Now, a 2v1 often looks a little bit dicey, but Pelipper not only has brought the rain, so the Fire-type moves are going to be doing less damage. It obviously doesn't get hit by any Ground-type moves, but it also is carrying that Focus Sash that is still intact. So Wei has to double up into it to be able to get the knockout. In that time, because Pelipper is speedier than the Torkoal, for example, and I'm assuming it's going to be speedier than the Ursaluna, then it's going to be able to get 1 knockout followed by another one. It can take damage, but you know it can't be KO'd thanks to that Focus Sash, giving Marco a little bit of breathing room in this endgame position.
Yeah, 100%. Like, kind of targeting into that Ursaluna should be very safe, to be honest. But there's the Torkoal instead, and which does not actually carry Protect in this time. So actually, that makes a lot of sense to be able to go into that slot there. You know you're going to get KO, and the Focus Sash will help you survive this facade. And at this point, you can kind of Protect to maybe get the burn to tick down. At this point, no substitutes can be set up by the Ursaluna. So yeah, Marco definitely has this game 1 in the bag.
And I think that's a great point as well. There's Protect potentially on Ursaluna, and you would hate in this moment to try and go down into the Ursaluna and then Torkoal gets some free damage off and break that Focus Sash. So once again, very clear pathways that Marco carved out for himself here, bringing the Pelipper in, switching it out, targeting down Pokemon, targets down the 4th one, KO, and Marco Silva takes game 1.
Congrats to Marco. Like, it seems, yeah, as you said, it seems very close, or it seems like Marco had his back against the wall there, but honestly, just leading Golden Go, for instance, will just threaten quite a lot as well.
Well, it's going to be the same leads out of the block for Marco, the tried and tested combination of a Mungus and Incineroar, and again, a dynamic duo indeed of Indeedee and the Hatterene. Now, we know exactly what happened in game 1, knockoff Spore. Is Wei going to shake things up and completely change around this meta?
Well, you could just still do that play, but instead, if you're Wei, you can just go for the Follow Me and just go for Trick Room, and you've got Trick Room up at that point.
Yeah.
And then, like, you're still not then threatened by the Amoonguss in Trick Room because your Hatterene has Magic Bounce. And so there's not a lot to kind of threaten it. At least at that point, you've got Trick Room up. Even, yes, your Indeedee's asleep, but Trick Room is the main thing that you want to do if you're Wei with this team. So it's a safe play. It's probably worth doing. And honestly, like, at least you've got it up at that point.
And I think if you're Wei coming into this game too, you have to guarantee that that Trick Room goes up. It's the real key to being able to get the momentum and the ball rolling on your side of the field. And Wei is going to be starting things off. We're going to see a terrestrialization on Marco's side first of all. The Amoonguss not wanting to take super effective damage from any of these expanding forces that could potentially come its way. And terrestrializing into the water type here. Going to be able to take those attacks much better. As Indeedee is going to probably leave itself as kind of the savior here for Hatterene, drawing in all those attacks as Incineroar goes for the knockoff. Will not be surprised to see a Spore come through, but it will at least enable this Hatterene to get Trick Room off.
So yeah, there's the Spore into the Indeedee again. And even though Trick Room might go up here, Indeedee is kind of that sort of like useless sort of slot right now. Yeah, the the Hatterene can obviously make the most of it right now. Expanding Force is going to do a lot of damage. You've also got those dazzling gleams that you can go for, and even Shadow Balls if the Incineroar wanted to do Terra Ghost for some reason right now. So Wei really wants to make the most of them and try and get that Ursaluna in. But the risk is if you switch that Ursaluna in, the Flame Wall hasn't activated yet, and Marco could catch it with a Spore, which would just be like sort of almost game ending at that point. Because then Ursaluna has to take a mandatory turn of sleep before even the Flame Wall gets to activate. So that's just why this is such a quite a powerful lead versus these hard Trick Room teams from Marco. It's not safe where you want to switch it in. And yeah, we can see Torkoal in the back too. That doesn't want to go to sleep either, and nothing's threatening a one-hit KO on this Amoonguss thanks to that Terra Water.
Well, no hard switches at this point. Wei not wanting to risk any of his Pokemon going to sleep, as Hatterene can just opt straight for the Dazzling Gleam. A little bit of decent damage into both the opposing Pokemon, particularly as Amoonguss has turned into that Terra Water type, as Amoonguss goes for the Spore into that slot. So fantastic observation, maybe thinking Indeedee wants to get out of there, and Hatterene is going to have to take significant chunk and lose its life orb for its troubles. I almost would have loved to have seen the Hatterene go for the Fire Terrestrialization in that moment.
Yeah, potentially, to kind of just take on that potential flare bits coming out at that point would have been really nice. But as you can see, now with Life Orb down, you've seen the damage Dazzling Gleam does. It's now going to do about 30% less than that now. So you can see how Marco's already kind of slowing down the pace of this game, making it his own, and stalling out this Trick Room just with Amoonguss and Incineroar.
Another little sleepy turn here for the Indeedee as Hatterene goes for the Expanding Force, trying to utilize the extra damage you can deal from that Psychic Terrain being in play. Not enough to get the knockout on Amoonguss, but will enable it to activate its berry, so it no longer has that utility for the rest of the game. But being a Dark type, Incineroar doesn't have to worry about these Expanding Forces at all. Amoonguss doing what it does best though, David. Spore after Spore after Spore, because eventually something's going to change on this ball position for Wei, and that Spore will, if you are Marco, hopefully catch something.
And that parting shot is so good right now as well. That's what makes Incineroar so good. It's usually going last in whatever situation it's in. It's kind of in that middling speed tier where if Trick Room's up, it's probably going last. If Trick Room isn't up, it's probably going last. So it enables something to get in very safely, and the Golden Go is such a nice option. And unfortunately for Wei, there's no mystical fire on this Hatterene, which would have been really good right now. But even then, Amoonguss can kind of redirect it away. There's no goggles on that Hatterene right now either. So yeah, again, Marco's put himself in a phenomenal position right now. And yeah, something needs to come in to deal with this Golden Go before it starts setting up too many nasty plots. So I think Wei needs to kind of guess where this Spore is maybe going to be heading, either into Hatterene slot or into the Indeedee. Let's see if he gets it right.
I would love to see a nasty plot boost go up here. The Hatterene does have access to Shadow Ball, but as you mentioned, the redirection support that Amoonguss can give will give Golden Go that breathing room. There is the Rage Powder, going to be drawing in any of those attacks, because even if Hatterene wanted to go for the spread attacks, Golden Go doesn't care about them at all. Expanding Force comes into play. It will get the knockout on the Amoonguss. We can see Golden Go able to hang on very happily with about a third of damage dealt from that move, and it now gives Marco the opportunity to bring in a Pokemon from the back, continue turning through these Trick Room turns. Golden Go actually going straight on the offensive, knows it can get the knockout on Hatterene with that Make It Rain, and even if it had gone into something like the Fire Terrestrialization here, it was already at damaged HP. It could have been in range for the knockout regardless.
Yeah, 100%. Now Marco can kind of bring in that Incineroar, get that another Intimidate down on this Ursaluna for things to take a little bit more damage. And if he has Pelipper in the back, you can kind of do a little bit of a bait and say, right, here's my Incineroar. Headlong rush it, do it, yes, go. And then switch it into Pelipper and suddenly take that hit, and you've stalled out another kind of turn of Trick Room at that point. Worst case, Facade right into that slot anyway, and then you're knocked down to Focus Sash, and then you can still protect anyway.
These speed interactions are going to be interesting as well, right? Because it's in Trick Room, Torkoal's faster, so it's going to set up the sun, but then Pelipper's like, excuse me, I'm bringing a Storm Cloud to the field.
Exactly, yeah. So we've seen, like, the Torkoal has to kind of come in here really to make the most of the Trick Room. This is probably your only chance to do it. Indeedee's asleep at this point too. So yeah, let's click the Terrafire Eruption button. Even in the rain, yeah, sure, it's going to be half damaged into whatever it's going to hit. But if that goes first, and then you've got a Facade into the Pelipper, for instance, that's going to be a KO. Golden Go's probably not going to be able to hang on from this attack either, unless it goes for the Terra Water instead. But it can't because Amoonguss has already gone for it. So in this position, Marco's already spent his Terra. So actually, he's given himself a little bit less options versus this duo. It just question is, can Wei make the most of these final turns?
That's the thing, Trick Room is ticking away. And as soon as that speed goes back to its normal state, the Pelipper and the Golden Go are going to be in such a prime position. I think the weather being on the field for Marco does enable him to stay in this game. Otherwise, the eruptions would be so overwhelming. But Torkoal's going to go for it anyway. It has got its Fire Crown of Glory on. It is holding a Charcoal to boost up those Fire-type moves even further. In the rain, though, can the little turtle do it?
So there's Protect to stall out this final turn of Trick Room. Question is, will this substitute come up for this Ursaluna potentially? There's the double Protect as well, so Torkoal's not going to be getting anything off, unfortunately. So there it is, Eruption into these two targets. No wide guard either on this Pelipper, which would have been even more helpful on this, but not needed currently, at least from this game one. Question is, has this Ursaluna clicked what it needs to? No, it hasn't. It is just the facade into the Pelipper. So now Marco has all the speed control for days now. Ursaluna and this Torkoal are both in range of a Weather Ball, and this Golden Ghost sitting very nicely as well.
You know what, considering that was the last turn of Trick Room, I think the double Protect play was actually kind of obvious from Marco there. That would have been a really nice opportunity to go for that substitute, but I'm honestly just devastated for little Torkoal that it didn't get its moment to try, even in the rain. Now, as you've said, the speeds have been reversed. Torkoal in a very dangerous spot to something like the Weather Ball. So I like this switch out by Wei being able to reset that weather, but that could be something that Marco could read into. Maybe go for the Weather Ball down into that Ursaluna and try and deal with it when you know Torkoal's switching out.
Okay, so it's the Protect, kind of getting a little bit of a reposition there for Wei. I like it, okay. Because, yeah, with the Make It Rain, there's going to be a special attack drop after that. And at that point, then Golden is even less threatening for the following turn. And now Torkoal can then come in a little bit, and then you win the Weather Ball, at least temporarily anyway. So I do like this play. It is the way out that Wei needs to kind of go for here. Imagine this is going to be a Weather Ball for Marco's Pelipper as well.
I think, though, as well, now that you know that the Torkoal is being forced to come back in, Marco can go for the same play that he did in Game 1. You can switch that Pelipper back out, bring in the Incineroar. Not only does that enable you to reset the weather later on, but you get a cheeky Intimidate down onto that Ursaluna again. Yeah,
exactly. So there's not a lot that you lose by just kind of clicking those moves right now. So, yeah, Marco has the Incineroar at the back. Incineroar does Incineroar things. Like, at this point, you can kind of protect one and then switch the other. And you probably want to, again, kind of do that with that Pelipper at this point, to be honest. Switch the Pelipper, protect the Golden Go. Incineroar comes in. If Incineroar goes down, you've got Pelipper and Golden Go still in the same position again to dish out that damage. And at that point, there's only single target attacks on this Ursaluna. The Pelipper still has its Focus Sash up. So if Marco plays this safe, he should just kind of get this win in the bag.
And Torkoal looks primed. It's got its Fire Terrestrialization, it's got its Charcoal. It can go for a powerful Eruption in the sun, except for the fact that it is slow. And Eruption does obviously more damage the more HP you've got. So if Pelipper and Golden Go can put a dent in it, then it's not going to be able to deal as much damage as it really wants to be able to do. You might be forced to go for something like the Weather Ball, then it would turn into a Fire-type move into that opposing Golden Go and just try and get a KO. But with all this switchability that Marco still has, he is very much in the driving seat of this set.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think we need to see a really well-timed substitute from this Ursaluna, but it's the Protect instead, which is going to fail, unfortunately. And so the Make It Rain just goes straight into that Ursaluna and takes the KO.
With a critical hit, no less, as well. This Golden Go is not messing around. It wants to be able to clean up this game and start looking towards Swiss at round 7. It is now the little Torkoal against these three, and although Torkoal is in prime position to go for that Eruption, and it gets it, it's able to have its full HP, the sun, the crown of fire damage. It is able to get a knockout on the Golden Go, but we know what's coming back in. This Torkoal had a beautiful moment, but Pelipper is about to come in and try and sweep up this set.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Pelican does kind of reign supreme over this Tortoise that could. Unfortunately, there is the rain, but Torkoal, it did its best though, didn't he?
It got a moment.
It really did get that moment. It got that really powerful Eruption off. Good for Torkoal.
It did, but you can see Torkoal is actually like, you know what, I'm not going to weather out the storm. I'm just going to throw in the towel, let you take the victory, and Marco Silva will win this set.
Huge congratulations to Marco Silva, 6-0 here at Lille Regional Championships. And